Deep in the uncharted depths of the Congo Forest, a legend stirs to life. The Kivuli tribe, a mysterious and elusive people of diminutive stature and striking appearance, have remained hidden for centuries. But as their world changes, with the forest diminishing due to relentless deforestation, the Kivuli are driven to desperate measures. The once peaceful tribe, with their jet-black skin, luminous green eyes and spiky hair, turn to the outskirts of civilization for survival, sparking terror among the local townspeople. As the region's village is empty, haunted by the fear of being hunted, a daring group of English archaeologists and naturalists arrives. Motivated by rumours and a quest for knowledge, they seek to uncover the truth behind the mysterious disappearances and the legend of the Kivuli. But what they find in the heart of the dark heart of the Congo is a reality far more terrifying than any folklore. The Congo Forest was a place of ancient secrets and whispered legends. Its dense canopy stretched as far as the eye could see, a vast expanse of green that had remained untouched for centuries. But lately, a sense of unease had settled over the forest like a dark cloud obscuring the sun. In the nearby town of Mwanga, stories circulated of strange figures lurking at the edge of the forest, their eyes glowing an eerie green in the darkness. The townspeople spoke of the Kivuli, a tribe so rarely seen that they had become the stuff of myth. But the recent disappearances had given the legends new life. As fear gripped Mwanga, many chose to flee, leaving empty homes and a town haunted by the unknown. But the stories were a siren call for Dr. Emily Harrow, a renowned English archaeologist, and her team of naturalists. The team arrived in Mwanga under a heavy, overcast sky. Dr. Harrow and her colleagues, anthropologist James Blythe, biologist Dr. Sarah Chen, and wildlife expert Liam Grant, were determined to uncover the truth behind the Kivuli and the unsettling events in the Congo. Their first stop was the local inn, which seemed to sag under the weight of the town's collective fear. The innkeeper, a wiry Juma, eyed them with curiosity and caution. "You're not here to stay, are you?" "Most are leaving, not arriving," Juma said, his voice tinged with nervousness. "We're here to study the forest and its inhabitants," Dr. Harrow replied, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Juma's eyes widened at the mention of the forest's inhabitants. "The Kivuli," he whispered, as if saying the name out loud would summon them. "They are not just stories, they are real, and they are dangerous." Despite Juma's warnings, the team set out the following day, equipped with gear and a determination to uncover the truth. The forest greeted them with a cacophony of sounds, the chirping of birds, the rustling of leaves, and an unsettling whisper that seemed to drift on the wind. As they ventured deeper, the forest seemed to close around them, the light dimming under the thick canopy. Dr. Chen, an expert in the region's flora and fauna, was the first to notice the change. "The ecosystem here is out of balance. The deforestation has pushed the wildlife, and perhaps the Kivuli, to the brink," she observed, examining a withered plant. The further they went, the more signs they found of the tribe's presence. Footprints too small to be an adult human's, remnants of what looked like makeshift hunting traps, and, most chillingly, articles of clothing from the missing townspeople. As night fell, they set up camp, the darkness surrounding them pulsating with unseen life. Liam, the vigilant wildlife expert, kept watch. They heard it in the darkest hour of the night, a soft, eerie chanting that seemed to come from all directions. Like ghostly lanterns, green eyes appeared in the camp's darkness. The Kivuli had found them. Frozen in fear, the team watched as the figures emerged from the shadows. They were small, no more than 3 feet tall, but their presence was imposing, their black skin almost merging with the night. Their eyes glowed hauntingly as they observed the intruders in their domain. The surreal scene momentarily paralyzed her before her. Dr. Harrow felt a mix of fear and fascination. The Kivuli, though small in stature, exuded an overwhelming presence. Their luminous green eyes seemed to pierce through the darkness, reading their deepest thoughts. "Stay calm," she whispered to her team, her voice steady despite her heart pounding. "We're not here to harm you." The Kivuli remained motionless, their eyes fixed on the intruders. Then, as if reaching a silent consensus, they retreated into the shadows, disappearing as quickly as they had appeared, the only sound being the team's laboured breathing. In the morning, the encounter seemed almost dreamlike. But the reality of their situation was undeniable. They were in the territory of a tribe unknown to the modern world, a tribe that was struggling for survival. Determined to learn more, the team continued their exploration. The forest revealed its secrets slowly. Abandoned Kivuli dwellings camouflaged within the foliage, strange markings on the trees, and more signs of the tribe's desperate hunt for food. As they delved deeper into the forest, the outside world's impact became increasingly apparent. Areas of deforestation loomed at the edges of the Congo. Stark, empty spaces replaced the once lush greenery. It was a grim reminder of the encroaching threat to the Kivuli's way of life. One evening, as the team gathered around the campfire, Dr. Harrow reflected on their mission. "We came seeking answers about the Kivuli," she mused, "but we're also uncovering uncomfortable truths about our impact on this world. The Kivuli's actions are a response to a crisis they didn't create." James nodded, adding, "Their aggression is born of necessity. In their eyes, we are not just intruders, but part of the force driving them to extinction." The discussion was cut short by a rustling in the bushes. Tension gripped the team as they prepared for another encounter with the Kivuli. But instead, a local hunter emerged, his face etched with fear. "They took my brother," he gasped, his words tumbling out in a frantic rush. "The Kivuli, they're not just stealing for food, they're angry, vengeful. They see us as the enemy." The hunter's words sent a chill down their spines. It was clear that the situation was escalating, the boundary between myth and reality blurring. The team knew their expedition had become more profound as they lay in their tents that night. They were no longer mere observers. They were now part of a story as old as the forest itself, a story of survival, conflict, and the unintended consequences of human actions. The whispering forest held its breath, watching and waiting as the team drifted into a restless sleep, unaware of the eyes that still watched them from the darkness. The Kivuli, the shadows of the Congo, were more than just a tribe. They were a testament to the delicate balance of nature, a balance that was now hanging by a thread. The sun rose over the Congo forest, casting long shadows through the dense canopy. The team awoke to a world that felt older and wilder, a stark contrast to the civilized life they had left behind. Dr. Emily Harrow's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts, piecing together the fragments of last night's encounter with the Kivuli and the hunter's haunting words. They broke camp early, eager to cover more ground. Today's goal was to map the extent of the deforestation and its impact on the Kivuli's habitat. As they trekked deeper into the forest, the signs of environmental degradation became increasingly evident. Vast swathes of land were stripped bare, the once vibrant ecosystem reduced to lifeless terrain. This deforestation is forcing the Kivuli into smaller areas, limiting their resources, Dr. Sarah Chen observed, her voice laced with concern. "It's no wonder they're lashing out." As they ventured further, James Blythe's keen anthropological insights shed light on the Kivuli's possible social structure. Their actions seem driven by more than just survival. There's a sense of deliberate strategy in their movements, a protective instinct for their tribe, he mused. The team's exploration was abruptly interrupted when they encountered a chilling scene. In a small clearing, they found remnants of what appeared to be a recent Kivuli feast, unmistakably human bones. The grim discovery was a stark reminder of the hunter's story and the desperate measures the tribe had resorted to. The atmosphere grew tense, and the team was now fully aware of the dangers lurking in the shadows of the Congo. Their mission had taken on a new urgency. They needed to understand the Kivuli to find a way to coexist. Their exploration led them to an area where recent logging activities scarred the forest. Amidst the fallen trees and debris, they found carvings on some of the remaining trunks, intricate symbols that hinted at the Kivuli's rich cultural heritage. These carvings could be a form of communication or ritual, Liam Grant speculated, examining the symbols closely. They're remarkably detailed, indicating a sophisticated level of expression. The day wore on, and the team camped near a stream. As night fell, the forest transformed again into shadows and whispers. The team took turns keeping watch, the previous night's events still fresh in their minds. She heard it during Dr. Harrow's watch, a faint, melodic chanting drifting on the breeze. Gripped by fear and curiosity, she followed the sound, creeping through the underbrush. As she neared the source, she saw them. The Kivuli engaged in what seemed like a ceremonial dance around a fire. Their movements were graceful, almost hypnotic, and their haunting chants told stories of sorrow and loss. Dr. Harrow realized this was a rare glimpse into the Kivuli's world, a chance to understand their perspective. After what felt like hours, the ritual ended, and the Kivuli disappeared into the forest as silently as they had come. Dr. Harrow returned to camp, her mind racing with thoughts. The following day, she shared her experience with the team. "Last night, I saw a side of the Kivuli that goes beyond our understanding of them as mere predators," she explained. "There's a depth to their culture that we've only just begun to uncover." The team agreed they needed to establish communication with the Kivuli to bridge the gap between fear and understanding. But as they prepared to break camp, they discovered Liam was missing. Panic set in as they called out for him, scouring the nearby area. There was no response, only the echoing silence of the Congo. Liam's disappearance was a grim reminder of the reality they faced. In the depths of the Congo, the line between observer and participant was dangerously thin. As they set out to search for Liam, the team realized that the shadows and disappearances were not just external threats. They were now part of the very fabric of their story, a narrative written with each step they took. The disappearance of Liam Grant cast a heavy shadow over the team as they navigated the dense undergrowth of the Congo Forest. The sense of urgency was palpable. Every rustle in the bushes, every snapped twig underfoot, seemed to heighten their anxiety. Dr. Emily Harrow, leading the search, tried to maintain a semblance of calm. "Stay close and keep your eyes open," she instructed, her voice betraying a hint of her concern. They moved methodically, calling out for Liam, hoping for a response. As they searched, Dr. Sarah Chen noted disturbed foliage and broken branches, signs that someone, or something, had recently passed through. The trail led them deeper into the forest, away from their mapped routes. Hours passed with no sign of Liam. The tension among the team grew, and each member was lost in their thoughts, contemplating the dangers. James Blythe seemed deep in thought, likely pondering the cultural implications of their current predicament. The forest began to change as they ventured further. The trees grew taller, their canopies denser, casting the forest floor into perpetual twilight. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves, a stark reminder of the forest's primordial nature. Suddenly Dr. Chen halted, signaling the others to stop. Ahead, barely visible through the foliage, were several small figures. The Kivuli, their luminous green eyes, watched the intruders cautiously from a distance. Dr. Harrow signaled for the team to stay quiet and still. Kivuli's appearance was striking, their jet-black skin almost melded with the shadows, and their spiky hair added to their otherworldly demeanor. Both groups observed each other for a few tense moments, an unspoken communication hanging in the air. Then, as silently as they had appeared, the Kivuli retreated into the forest, leaving an indelible mark on the team. "They're curious about us," James whispered, once the Kivuli were out of earshot. "There's intelligence in their eyes, a kind of understanding we can't yet comprehend." The encounter, though brief, offered a glimmer of hope, the possibility of peaceful interaction. But the pressing matter of finding Liam remained. The team continued their search, now more aware of the eyes that watched them. They were forced to set up a temporary camp as night fell, with Liam still missing. The darkness of the Congo was all-encompassing, the sounds of nocturnal creatures a constant backdrop to their vigil. Dr. Harrow took the first watch, her thoughts a tumultuous mix of worry for Liam and fascination with the Kivuli. The forest was alive with unseen activity, the rustling of leaves and distant calls creating a symphony of the night. In the early morning hours, a rustling in the underbrush caught her attention. She reached for her light, but a hand on her shoulder stopped her. It was Sarah. "Don't," Sarah whispered. "It might be them." They waited, breaths held, as the rustling grew closer. Then, out of the darkness, a figure emerged, not a Kivuli, but Liam, dishevelled and panting. "Liam!" Dr. Harrow exclaimed, relief washing over her. The team gathered around as he collapsed, exhausted but unharmed. "They took me," Liam gasped, his words punctuated by deep breaths. "The Kivuli. They were all around me, but they didn't harm me. They observed me like I was a curiosity." His account was incredible. The Kivuli had captured him, yet here he was, returned safely. It was a gesture that spoke volumes about the tribe's intentions and intelligence. As dawn broke, the team, now reunited, pondered their next move. The encounter with the Kivuli and Liam's mysterious return had changed the nature of their mission. They were no longer just researchers. They were now part of a delicate dance with a culture and a people shrouded in mystery. With its whispering trees and shadowy inhabitants, the Congo was more than a forest. It was a nexus of ancient and modern worlds, and the team was now firmly at the center of this convergence. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The Kivuli were watching, and the forest was speaking. The team needed to listen. The morning light filtered through the dense canopy of the Congo, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor. Now reunited with Liam, the team gathered to discuss their following action. Liam's experience had provided them with a new perspective on the Kivuli. They were not mindless predators, but a complex society capable of curiosity and, perhaps, understanding. Reflecting on Liam's account, Dr. Emily Harrow suggested a bold plan. "We need to establish communication with the Kivuli. If they're willing to observe and return one of us unharmed, there's a chance for dialogue." The team agreed, albeit with reservations. The task was daunting and the risk was significant. However, the potential to bridge the gap between their world and that of the Kivuli was too great an opportunity to pass up. Armed with recording equipment, sketch pads, and various scientific and cultural documentation tools, they ventured deeper into the forest. Their goal was to find a way to interact with the Kivuli without provoking them. As they moved through the forest, Dr. Sarah Chen pointed out various plants and signs that indicated the presence of the Kivuli. "They're masters of their environment," she noted. "Everything here tells a story, from the arrangement of the leaves to the pattern of the tracks." The team soon came across a clearing with signs of recent Kivuli activity. Intricate patterns were etched into the ground, and small, peculiar objects were deliberately formed. When examining the patterns, James Blythe said, "These could be symbolic, part of their ritual. We should document everything." They spent hours clearing, recording, and analyzing the signs and symbols. Still shaken from his encounter, Liam sketched the figures he had seen, capturing the haunting appearance of the Kivuli. They set up a small, discreet camp near the clearing as night approached. Dr. Harrow decided they would take turns watching for any signs of the Kivuli. The atmosphere was tense, but there was a sense of anticipation. During the second watch, with Dr. Chen on duty, the Kivuli emerged from the forest. Silently, almost ghost-like, they surrounded the clearing, their luminous green eyes fixating on the camp. While remembering Liam's experience, Dr. Chen remained still, signaling the others to do the same. The Kivuli watched them for hours. Then, unexpectedly, one of the Kivuli approached, its movements deliberate and unhurried. It stopped at the edge of the camp, its eyes locked on the sketches Liam had made. The moment was critical. Dr. Harrow picked up a sketch with a slow and non-threatening gesture and held it out. The Kivuli, after a moment of hesitation, stepped closer, examining the drawing intently. The interaction was a breakthrough. The Kivuli seemed fascinated by the representation of themselves. More of them began to emerge, each examining the sketches and equipment with a childlike curiosity. Seizing the moment, Dr. Harrow began to speak softly, introducing herself and her team. She knew they likely didn't understand her words, but the tone of her voice seemed to reassure them. The night passed in an unprecedented exchange. The Kivuli, while wary, showed no aggression. They communicated through gestures and soft, melodic sounds, a complex and beautiful language. The Kivuli retreated into the forest depths as dawn broke, leaving the team in awe. They had just experienced a peaceful, meaningful exchange with one of the most elusive tribes on Earth. The team decided to extend their stay in the Congo. Their mission had evolved from mere observation to establishing a line of communication with the Kivuli. There were risks, but the potential for understanding and coexistence was a chance they were willing to take. In the heart of the Congo, a new chapter was being written that bridged the gap between two vastly different worlds. The secrets of the Kivuli were slowly unraveling, revealing a culture rich in tradition and harmony with nature. The journey into the unknown had just begun for Dr. Harrow and her team. The days following their peaceful encounter with the Kivuli were filled with cautious optimism. Dr. Emily Harrow and her team continued their exploration of the Congo, documenting their findings and seeking further interaction with the tribe. Their presence in the forest, however, did not go unnoticed. Local hunters, aware of the team's activities, grew concerned. The balance in the Congo was delicate, and the intrusion of outsiders, even well-meaning ones, could have unforeseen consequences. One morning, as the team prepared for another day of exploration, they were approached by a group of local hunters led by a man named Moseka. His expression was stern, his eyes weary. "You do not understand the ways of the Kivuli," Moseka said, addressing the team. "They are not just another tribe to be studied. They are spirits of the forest, guardians of a balance you are disturbing." Dr. Harrow listened intently, recognizing the importance of Moseka's words. "We respect the Kivuli and only seek to understand them," she replied, hoping to ease his concerns. Moseka, however, was not convinced. "Your presence here has emboldened them. They venture closer to our villages, taking more than their needs. The Kivuli are part of the Congo, but so are we. This is our home, and we must protect it." The tension between the team's pursuit of knowledge and the locals' need for safety was palpable. Moseka and his hunters departed with a warning, leaving the team to ponder the complexity of the situation they found themselves in. Determined to continue their work, but mindful of the growing concerns, the team decided to focus on establishing a more structured communication with the Kivuli. They hoped that by building trust, they could find a way to mitigate the impact of their presence. Over the next few days, the Kivuli made several appearances, each time showing more curiosity and less fear. A rudimentary form of communication began to develop through gestures and simple exchanges. The team learned that the Kivuli, despite their small stature, were skilled hunters and gatherers, deeply connected to the forest. However, the team's progress was abruptly halted one evening when they heard distant shouts and the sound of commotion. Rushing to investigate, they found Moseka and his hunters engaged in a confrontation with a few Kivuli. The Kivuli, cornered and frightened, were hissing and baring their teeth while the hunters brandished spears, their faces set in grim determination. Acting quickly, Dr. Harrow and her team intervened, stepping between the two groups. "Stop! This is not the way!" she shouted, her voice firm. The standoff was tense, with both sides unwilling to back down. Dr. Harrow, realizing the gravity of the situation, addressed Moseka. "We can find a solution that benefits the Kivuli and your people. Violence will lead to suffering." Moseka, though reluctant, called off his hunters. The Kivuli, seizing the opportunity, disappeared into the forest, their green eyes lingering. The near-violent encounter was a wake-up call for the team. The complexities of the Congo were deeper than they had anticipated. It was not just a matter of studying an isolated tribe. It was about understanding and navigating the intricate relationship between the Kivuli, the local people, and the forest. Back at their camp, the team discussed their next steps that night. "We need to find a balance," Dr. Sarah Chen said. "Our research is important, but we can't ignore our impact on this ecosystem and its inhabitants." The decision was made to reach out to the local community, involve them in their efforts, and work towards mutual understanding. The Kivuli were a vital part of the Congo, but so were the people who had lived alongside them. As dawn broke, the team, with a renewed sense of purpose, set out to meet with the village elders. They hoped to bridge the gap between science and tradition and find a way for all who called the Congo home to coexist. The hunt had begun, but it was not for knowledge or survival. It was a hunt for understanding, balance, and peaceful coexistence in the ancient forest. The morning air in the Congo was thick with the scent of damp earth and the chorus of the forest's inhabitants. Dr. Emily Harrow and her team embarked on their journey to the village, eager to engage the elders in dialogue. Their goal was to foster a collaborative relationship, bridging the gap between the modern world and the ancient traditions of the Congo. The forest seemed to close around them as they passed through the dense underbrush. The Congo was a labyrinth of green, where every tree looked the same, and every path seemed to twist back on itself. Navigation was a challenge, even for the experienced members of the team. Midway through their journey, a dense fog began to roll in, blanketing the forest in a ghostly shroud. Visibility dropped drastically, and the once familiar sounds of the forest grew distant and muffled. "We need to stay close," Dr. Harrow instructed, her voice barely audible over the fog. "Let's mark our path to avoid getting turned around." They continued, but the fog seemed to disorient them further. Landmarks were obscured, and the path they had been following vanished into the white mist. It wasn't long before they realized they were lost. Panic began to set in. The forest, a place of wonder and discovery, now felt oppressive and threatening. Every rustle in the underbrush seemed like a hidden danger, every bird's call a warning. James Blythe, the anthropologist, tried to keep the team's spirits up. "We're experienced explorers," he said, sounding confident. "We'll find our way out. Let's keep a steady pace and stay alert." As hours passed, the fog showed no signs of lifting. Their progress could have been faster, and the terrain became increasingly challenging to navigate. The team's supplies were dwindling, and the realization that they might have to spend the night in the forest became increasingly likely. As dusk approached, Dr. Sarah Chen suggested they make camp. "We need to rest and conserve our energy," she said. "We'll have a better chance of finding our way in the morning light." They set up a makeshift camp, using their limited gear to create a shelter. The darkness of the Congo at night was total, a realm of shadows and whispers. Dr. Harrow couldn't shake the feeling of being watched during her watch. The Kivuli were masters of their environment, and she knew they could be lurking just beyond the camp, hidden in the fog. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft, melodic sound, a humming that resonated through the trees. It was beautiful and eerie, and she realized it was the Kivuli, their presence both a comfort and a concern. Morning came with no relief from the fog. Exhausted and hungry, the team attempted to return to a familiar area. Their situation was dire, and realizing they were at the mercy of the Congo was humbling. As they trudged through the undergrowth, they stumbled upon a clearing. In the center stood an ancient tree, its branches twisted into the sky. Carved into its trunk were symbols like those they had seen in previous sites. Dr. Harrow approached the tree, running her fingers over the carvings. "This could be a sign," she murmured. "The Kivuli might use them as markers." They decided to follow the direction indicated by the carving, a decision that felt like grasping at straws but was their best chance. As they moved, the fog began to thin, revealing glimpses of the forest they had come to know. After several hours, the fog lifted entirely, and they found themselves on the edge of a familiar path. Relief washed over them. They were no longer lost in the Congo. Their ordeal had been a stark reminder of the power and mystery of the forest. It was a living entity, a world unto itself, where the line between being an observer and a participant was blurred.